Well, glory be, mercy me, we've done it again. I gotta be really honest, man. I woke up grumpy. I am having a grumpy, grumpy, grumpy day. Grumpy, 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 grumpy day. So I'm gonna sing a grumpy song, and then we're gonna move on and have a grumpy day. This is Fuck Around Friday. This is the day where I get to do whatever I want. And today I want to be grumpy. And today's video was like a really personal one for me. You know, anytime I talk about sex and sexuality in the society, hey Nanya, how you doing? Good to see you. There's all these like trolls that come out of the woodwork, right? All the alpha bro dudes who think that they're the coolest. Like they like to say things like, "Oh, you're just a beta cuck" or whatever, and it's just embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing that these guys, like, it's the same energy as like the people who are driving around in those big trucks, right? It's that same energy as those guys driving around in the big trucks, and we're all like, we know that you're deflecting. Hey Vince, how you doing, bud? How you doing? But it's just frustrating. Like, we can't have an adult conversation about sex and sexuality in this culture. Like, we just can't. It's it's a taboo to even talk about it, and yet we're like inundated with it. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of pornography in the society, not a lot of sex. Like, that's and people don't really understand how those things are actually different. Hey Alex, how you doing, bud? I love you too, bud. All right, I'm gonna play this song. Hey Harry, how you doing, bud? Stand up straight with your shoulders back. Tighten that heart, give it no slack. Find another way to fill that void. Fill that order, do as you're told. No one cares, you're getting old. The fake smiles, they just make you annoyed. Get lost in your illusions. Pornography engine. Go save another princess. It won't save you from your sins. Wounded apes go on the attack. Dig too deep, can't take it back. Broken ground will never let it go. Sold out for your even born. Try to eat, but it's all gone. Why sell yourself just to put on a show? Get lost in your illusion. Pornography engine. Go save another princess. It won't save you from your sin. Stupid monkey on a burning rock. Reach the stars, grabbing his cock. Pump and dump your soul to get to Mars. Dreams don't mean a single thing. Don't worry what tomorrow brings. Surely it will only leave a scar. Get lost in your illusions. pornography engine. Go save another princess. It won't save you from your sin. Get lost in your illusions. Pornography engine. Go save another princess. It won't save you from your sin. 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 I just put it up, bud, so I don't think your comment's probably the only comment. Except the twits on Reddit, right? Like the twits on Reddit is what I'm talking about. Yeah, I can see you, Nanya. Hi. How are you doing? Sometimes YouTube just censors comments, bud. Like, that's it. Sometimes people just is like, nah, I don't like it. Get fucked. So it just doesn't put it up. Eziel, we're bombarded with sexual imageries everywhere, possibly more so than any era in history, but less people are having sex. Yep. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to the illusionary, like, they want to sell it to you. That's it. Like, if you have it, right, if you have sex, like, if sex is something that is available to you, if you, like, walk down the street to your local pub, and there are women there who are interested in meeting with you, having a conversation, getting to know you, becoming friendly, going home and having a sexual relationship with you. If that arrangement exists, then you can't sell people sex, right? That the capitalist death cult wants to make sure that everyone is in their little compartment and just bombarded with pornography, and that it's so difficult to actually have a basic human connection and to have like this basic human conversation with one another about sex and sexuality, that eventually people out of desperation and capitulation will just pay for it, right? Because it's easier, and eventually people get to that point. It's either that or you turn into these incel types and you just blow up, right? Right? And like, I'm well beyond, like, here in the pandemic, especially, like, where do you even go? Like, where do you even go? Like, where do you go? Right? And there's, and like, all the dating sites and everything suck. They're terrible. Like, they suck. Like, they suck. They're so stupid. The whole thing is literally like, you're pretty, right? Oh, like, you can't even give anybody, like, a basic chance. And, like, the whole culture has turned itself like this. Like, the whole culture has turned itself like this. Like, if a man starts talking to a woman, the woman can treat him like shit, and the man's just supposed to shrug and be like, okay, well, bye. Right? Like, and then women walk around wondering what's going on. Right? So, and it's incredibly complex, and it's incredibly ridiculous, and it's like, and I'm not trying to blame just the women. Men are assholes. Like, men we have literally no training. Like, we've got no manners whatsoever. Like, so we've just created this culture where we would just want to shit all over each other all the time, right? Like, and everything is just this backbiting, like, stay away from me. And now we've even got like, physical distancing, right? Like, it's literally like every aspect of the society is built and structured to kill any chance for two people engaging in sex with one another. And that's going to be sustained and maintained because then you can sell sex to people, right? And that's what it's about. That's what it's all about. It's this worship of money, as always. It's just this worship of money that just supplants everything. All right, we got enough people in the chat. Let's move on to the day's number. Today's number is, I'm going to go right in the middle. I'm going with a 5. I'm feeling a 5.
Here we go for today's number.
Here we go for today's number.
It's December 3, 2021.
Here we go. The great, powerful
10
David Lynch.
balls.
Come on, who's in?
Each
Who's in?
ball has
we got
a
a 3,
number.
we got a 7. Hey, Chris, how you doing, bud? Good to see you.
Numbers 1
Lonnie,
through
good
10.
to see you, Lonnie. Ezzy all with a 7.
Whirl
Got 2
the
7s.
numbers.
That's an okay array. We got a 40% chance. Oh, 50% now.
Pick
60%
a number.
chance now. Here we go. Here we go. We've been
Today's number is
6.
6.
Right through. We had a 70% chance. That's been happening a lot. That's been happening a lot on this stream recently. Very interesting. Yesterday someone hit it. I think it was Rob. Rob hit it. The rest of us, though, tough shit. Tough shit. Get fucked. I don't know. David Lynch, man. He's been snubbing us. He's been snubbing us, man. One of these days. That's right, Lonnie. Believe in yourself. Believe in the power of 5. Yeah, dating sites are mostly owned by one parent company. Exactly. It's all a monopoly, right? That's all this system is. Alex, you got to do what you got to do, dude. You got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. So, moving on. We've crested 1,000 cases here in Ontario. We did it. We did it. Just as a friendly reminder to everybody, like when this pandemic first begun, 1,000 cases was having places get fucking locked down. And now we're cresting 1,000 cases and they're talking about opening. Right? Like, we're such a lost people. We're so lost. Like, we don't have our feet moored to anything that's meaningful. Like, this pandemic, we could have resolved it. As a people, like as humanity, we could have come together. We could have said, okay, everybody just stay home. We're going to pay everybody to stay home. We're going to create distribution chains so nobody even needs to leave their house. And we'll maintain that until we get a vaccine, and then we'll distribute the vaccine throughout the entire public, throughout the entire populace of the entire planet. Everyone will get the vaccine, and we'll just knock this shit out. We'll just knock it right out. Right? Like, that's a pretty clean and easy plan that literally anybody could have comprehended or understood. And it wouldn't have taken that long, honestly. It wouldn't have taken that long. But now, because we've dicked around with it, because we never really did a lockdown in the first place, because we refused to actually be adults and make adult decisions, and because we refuse to actually send the vaccine to poorer nations and actually like act like humanity is a single thing, a single entity, right? Because we refuse to accept or acknowledge that this is the case, we're just going to get completely fucked and railroaded by this, right? Our incompetent, deluded leadership. Yeah, exactly. Shareholders were concerned. Yeah, we had to protect capitalism after all, because we all know, right? Certainly capitalism's not a death cult, right? No, we're not sacrificing human lives to the altar of capital. What are you talking about? This is in no way a death cult. Like, it's completely a death cult. We are absolutely trading human lives for fake money dollars that we like pull out of the air that don't exist. Is this pandemic related to China rising? I mean, it's related insofar as you can see what a rational society will do versus what an irrational society will do. Like, our chaos society reacted to this pandemic in the stupidest way it possibly could have. Like, the only thing that would have been stupider is if we simply didn't even say, don't wear a mask. Like, if we just said, do nothing. That would have been the stupidest thing to do. And some nations did exactly that. Like, Switzerland did exactly that. They just said, like, oh, well, what are you going to do? Right? And but it seems to me China's getting too rich. I mean, China's building its own wealth. Like, that's all it is. Like, we like to pretend like China is like, oh, foreign investment is coming in and oh my God and all this kind of stuff. But like the reality is that what China is doing, it's doing because it's deciding to do it. It's choosing to do it, right? It's looking at itself, its own people, its resources, like what it can do, and it's doing things, right? That's why it's getting rich, right? Oh, we're building rail all the way across Europe and into Europe and into the Middle East and down into Africa and all. I can't imagine why we're getting rich. Is it because we're actually building stuff and actually doing stuff? And is it because we're choosing to? We're not relying on some ridiculous concept of like a free market. We're not looking at like the chaos of the United States and going like, yeah, I can't wait to get that here in China, right? Oh, Nanya, you're starting to get into like the conspiracy theory side of this conversation, and while that's fun, I don't really do it. Honestly, I don't. It to me it seems to be a waste of time. Like, we know things that are true and we know things that are not true, and like, did this idea that the Chinese released this virus or that the elites released this virus on purpose in order to do all this kind of stuff? No. Like, you can't control viruses. Like, you can't control... Like, that's the reason why they stopped doing mustard gas and shit like that, right? Because they started to use it in World War One, right? And they stopped doing it because they started to understand that when you release gas, like chlorine gases and things like this, mustard gases, into a battlefield, well, it fucks your own troops up too, right? You can't control it. Like, and it's the same thing. Like, you're telling me that like these elite, like these wealthy elite who are incidentally kind of at war with one another, like who are actually in conflict with one another, both simultaneously agreed to release this virus on purpose into the populace, which immediately you can observe how the wealthy people started to panic. Like, why do you think we got the CERB here in Canada? Like here in Canada, they like panicked. It was like a Panic at the Disco, dude. Like, it was like, I don't buy into it. I don't think it's real because like, you can't control that shit. You can't control it. The sites profit off singles, so maybe they make more dollars by sucking at hooking people up. Major, that's an interesting idea. New news today, Gaddafi's son is finalized to run in the election in 3 weeks. FDA will release emergency authorization docs in 55 years. Biden is polling lower than ever before. Yeah, Biden has been a complete dud. Like, he's been a complete dud. Like, he went in being like, I'm the new FDR. With my 7 trillion, sorry, 5 trillion, sorry, 3 trillion, sorry, 1 trillion, sorry, $500 billion, and you got to actually surround Joe Manchin's house, his yacht, in order to get that done. Like, what a joke. And we all know that $500 billion is going to get jammed into offshore accounts. They'll, like, use it to do some minor repairs on the grid. They're not going to build new infrastructure or anything. It's a joke, right? Like, America can't even build a fucking wall. Like, they can't do anything. They're completely calcified. They can't achieve infrastructure. They can't do it because there's no money in it for the billionaire class, right? That during this process of extraction, which incidentally is starting to become more and more obvious, right? So John Ivison, who is like a complete Luddite, by the way, like he's got worms in his brain, and his take on this is so just like brain rot. We are bleeding capital, and that spells big trouble. So there's a report that came out recently, right? And what's the key line? But those numbers include government investment in things like infrastructure. Marion stripped out public sector spending to look at purely private sector investment. So just pay attention to the death cult. Right? Pay no attention to public sector spending, which is your real economy, where actual things actually happen. Pay attention to the death cult, the extraction, right? So he found out for the first time on record there was an absolute contraction in our capital stock. as new investment did not cover depreciation, a calamity for a small trading economy like Canada. While he concedes that COVID played a part, Marion points out the 5-year moving average has seen private investment slowly year on year since 2015 when it grew at 4%. So the fall off in investment in mining, all this kind of stuff, because they're extracting wealth. Because they're extracting wealth, right? Like, and now you're starting to see more and more officials, they're not willing to use that language because they're ostensibly allied to the death cult, but they are coming out and they're saying like, yeah, private investment is extracting wealth from the society. And there's a thing called capital flight, which is literally them extracting the wealth and then leaving with it, right? Like capitalists are a fucking, like it's a death cult. I don't know what you need to see anymore to understand. Like they're extracting wealth by the numbers, by their own reports, by their own economists, right? This is a special report from the National Bank Financial, right? Like their own people. And the response from the death cult is, well, you need to make Canada a more enticing place for us to invest in. That's what you need to do. You need to make Canada... No. What we need to do is we need to lop off these capitalists, right? Because if they leave, so what? Like, this is my big thing. Like, they take their money, they leave, so what? Right? We still have all the buildings. We still have all the infrastructure. We still have all the stuff. We still have all the resources. We still have everything. We just literally need a political class who actually is like, oh yeah, we can just do things because we're the fucking government. We don't need to pay attention to these private capitalists. They can get fucked. Like literally we should expropriate everything from them. Jail a lot of them if you ask me. And like, be done with this. Like these people are frauds. They're complete and total frauds. Like this grifting game that they're running on the populace to try to convince us that they're important is an embarrassment. We can do all of this stuff. Like take a look at what's going on in China, right? They're doing massive projects, enormous, huge scale projects, right? And they're doing it because they want to, because the state sector is doing it. Like we are an embarrassment as a people. Like we're an embarrassment. And China is going to make us look like a bunch of children very, very soon. If you haven't already concluded that we're a bunch of just sniveling children, right? China's going to make it very clear very soon that that's the case. China hasn't bogged itself down with military spending. Instead of bombing people, they build infrastructure in the countries they trade with. Yeah, what a deviant idea. I know. Oh, shit. Actually helping people build infrastructure that you then get access to improves your own nation. Holy fuck. What the fuck? Like, we're so stupid. Like, these are rudimentary. Like, these are kindergarten level ideas. Like, literally, it feels like we're walking into the society being like I feel like I gotta put on, like, the yellow Big Bird suit. And be like, hey everybody, sharing, everybody should share with one another, Like, it's what it really feels like now. And more and more and more, you're seeing even the institutions that are embedded in the death cult coming out with statements being like, yeah, that's accurate. And their solution is, we just got to keep doubling down on the death cult more. Like, that's what they're saying to us. Literally, instead of saying capitalism is a failure, we need to get rid of it, it's not an organizational structure, it fails from the outset, right? Instead of saying that, we say, oh man, we gotta enslave the populace better, right? We gotta drop wages, we've gotta make things more appealing for investors, i.e. slavery, which is what they always want, right? Get rid of these guys. Get rid of these guys. Like, goodbye, farewell, the system is over, right? But instead of that, we've got Justin Dope Trudeau, right? Who's just like, oh yeah, we'll just give more money to them. And then when we give them more. And like, if you give money to these guys, they literally go, oh, thank you for the money, put it in their offshore account, and then ask for more money. Like, that's literally what they do. And it's embarrassing that, like, brain-rotted idiots like John Iverson are walking around Like, what's his moronic statement here? Foreign investors are too important to ignore. No, they're not. Get rid of these fucking hacks, right? We have all these resources. We have the capability. We have the population. We can do it ourselves. We should be doing it ourselves. But instead, we're sitting there with, like, pretending like our hands are tied. Like, we're like, oh, we can't do anything without the say-so of these capitalists, says the guy who's bought by the capitalist, right? Like, literally, it's like the Renfrew and the like, oh, we can't do anything without the masters say-so. If we do it without the masters say-so, master will be angry with us. We should take a wooden stake. We should jam it into Dracula's heart. We should kill Renfrew, right? Dracula dies, right? And then we should seize Dracula's lands and rule ourselves. Like, it's really very straightforward. Like, why are we asking vampires permission? Like, I don't understand. Like, we've got to be driving a stake through the heart of this thing. Oh, capitalism! What a fucking fraud. And in the meantime, while this is going up, Goldman Sachs asks in biotech research report, is curing patients a sustainable business model? Like, these people are vampires. Like, they're vampires. Like, if the very fact that Goldman Sachs even asked this question means that they should be removed from their positions. They should not exist as an institution. Like, this is as dark and as evil as any statement that has ever been stated by anyone in the history. This is like eugenics level, like, sinister, dark, genocidal contemplations. Is curing patients a sustainable business model? Once again, openly arguing human life, money. Which do you think is actually more important? Human life, money. And always over and over again, right? Ugh. Yeah, human capital stock equals dead peasants. I know people are dying, but they're not making enough money. Iran kicked out capitalists solely, then became surrounded by the banks. That's not really what happened. Like, Iran was forced into a position because of the Ayatollah, right? Because the United States came in, basically took Iran over. The first time that Iran had gone to war in 200 years was under these neoliberal capitalists. The Shah installed by the CIA and by the United States, and the Iranians, right? And as always happens under these circumstances, it's the far right, well organized militias, right, who arise during such a period of time. They overthrew this situation and they took Iran back. And yeah, of course they kicked out the capitalists, like the people who literally were like murdering their children. Yeah, of course they did that. And all it's resulted in for Iran, like, why did America not simply invade Iran the way it invaded Iraq and Afghanistan, right? That's a big question that lots and lots of people seem confused by. And it's because when Iran, like, I mean, you've got Afghanistan, like, America had has military bases all along the Afghani border, all along the Iraqi border, right? They've got ships in the Gulf of Oman, the Persian Gulf. They've got Saudi Arabia, right? Like, Iran is surrounded. Like, why didn't they just go in and destroy it? It's because when Iran threw out all their fucking capitalists and said, get the fuck out of here, China was like, interesting position, Iran. Maybe we should buddy up. Maybe we should buddy up. And you can see that clear as day in the Belt and Road Initiative, right? Look at the lengths that China went to in order to dance around political borders in order to get a rail into Tehran, right? They knew they couldn't get through Afghanistan, right? They knew they couldn't get through these regions, so they literally built up through Like, they're going through, like, fucking Mongolia, right? Through mountains and shit. And then back down in order to get into Tehran. They worked so hard to get this rail built into Tehran. And it is the reason the United States could not invade Iran. Because they knew if they started to invade Iran, China would start funneling resources into Iran like mad, and there would be a proxy war that America would lose. It's a guarantee America loses this war. You can't have a war in Afghanistan, a war in Iraq, a war like committing a genocide in Yemen and Oman, sustaining a genocide in Palestine, while also simultaneously attempting to do a bunch of shit in South America, while also having a major offensive in Iran. The offensive that would occur in Iran would be major. Like, Iran is not a pushover. They're not going to just be like, oh, the Americans. Like, that's not what's going to happen. And, like, the idea that America would just walk into Iran and take it over, and like all three of these nations, while China is funneling resources from Nanya, you must know about the Belt and Road Initiative. Every single thing, every single political moment that exists in your life must be connected to, come on. If you want to talk about foreign politics at all, you must be talking about the Belt and Road Initiative. And if you are not putting the Belt and Road Initiative in your like computation of what's going on in the world, then you're out to lunch. You're off in left field. It is the most important thing happening in the world today. That nothing is even close, right? I don't give a shit that Elon is shooting rockets at Mars. I don't give a shit about all of that is just billionaire babies trying to impress their daddies by being like, I'm super smart now, aren't I, daddy, right? None of it matters. Completely irrelevant, right? Like, we're gonna build a wall, right? Like, oh, the infrastructure budget. It's all total bullshit. The Belt and Road Initiative is, without a doubt, the hot shit that's going on. And you can see anytime you see any news about Belarus, like, here's the Belt and Road Initiative going from Moscow into Minsk into Warsaw, right? Why do you think everybody's all about like fuck you, Belarus? Why do you think they're like that? Because if they can create a sanction system, if they can cut off support, then they can cut Europe off from the Belt and Road Initiative. And this is why the Chinese are desperate to get a second rail up into Budapest, right? You can see right through there. These pink lines here are plans. Like, Belt and Road Initiative, super, super important. China doesn't even need to have the most advanced technology. They could just have the incentive alone, and that's already miles ahead of what we have. Yeah, I mean, just the idea that they're actually building stuff. Like, we're just fat and lazy and stupid. Like, we're just not interested in doing anything, right? Like what's the last great American project, right? Like, really? What, maybe landing that man on the moon in the 60s, you think? Like, what, for real, what's the American project that you look at and go like, yeah, that was worth a goddamn. That's actually achieving something, right? And like, the landing the man on the moon thing was such a grift on the populace, because the Soviets were the first people to get into space. They were the first people to actually go around the planet. They were the first people to actually put a life form up into space and then bring it back down, right? Like, the Soviets were the ones that actually did the heavy lifting. They're the ones that actually, like, getting into space is much more impressive than getting a man on the moon. It's much more impressive to get a man into space and to bring him back. Like, that's a much more impressive achievement. Yeah, the last great American project is and always will be war. Yeah, you're right about that, bud. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, truly vampiric. The people they don't kill, they create enabling monsters. Yeah, the debtor class who have everything to use. People dying isn't a sustainable business model either. I mean, as long as you're not the one dying, right? Like, as long as you don't care about those people, as long as it doesn't matter to you. Yep, USA and Britain overthrew Mohammed Mossadegh in 1953 in Iran. Yep. Only thing we seem to be interested in is letting the rich gut us while they get richer off our misery. Well, and we now know with like the Ghislaine Maxwell bullshit, like they're just gonna retreat to like some pedophile island. Like that's their plan. Like that's their plan. Their plan is to extract as much wealth as they can, right? And then like extract as much wealth as they can, and then retreat to some pedophile island, right? Like. That they'll like send their surrogates into the populace in order to kidnap people, so that they can bring them to the pedophile island. Like I'm quite serious when I call these people vampires. Like that's the structure of the new society that is coming. They're going to live on an island that we literally cannot get to, right? And they're just going to send like boats over and come and kidnap children. Like that's what they're going to be doing. Like they already do that. Like they already do that. Right? Yeah. This is Canada. Banning real estate speculation, subsidizing landlords. Oh, we completely... Let's shit on some people. Who should we shit on? Let's shit on some people. At Justin Trudeau. Dude, just stop subsidizing oil. It's real easy. Like, you're gonna be 80 wondering why you didn't. And when your kids ask you about why you did nothing to stop this. Yeah, I mean, like, Trudeau's the most embarrassing prime minister we've ever had. Just like, no question. I don't think anyone is even close. Like, Stephen Harper was certainly a better prime minister. Who else? Who should we shit on? Who wants to shit on somebody? I saw something about, oh, yeah. We always got to shit on Elon. So, in the end, it was all so you could become a scummy arms dealer. You did it. Daddy would be proud. Always got to hit Elon with the daddy thing because he's got major daddy issues. Just stop subsidizing. Yeah, like it really, like what? Oh, we're in the midst of a crisis. And the crisis is that I'm doing too much heroin, right? I'm doing too much heroin, right? And I'm doing all this. I have all of this heroin over here because. My parents keep giving me money specifically to buy heroin with. They actually call it the heroin account. Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think? You know? Like, like, the solutions to the problems are actually fairly straightforward. Like, when we talk about transition, we really need to be talking about it in like the agricultural sector. Like that's what we need to be talking about. But like agriculture is what's important, right? Heating houses is what's important. We need to make sure that we like transition and use the fossil fuels we have in order to make the transition happen in those industries, because those industries are essential and they are crucial. People can starve. People can freeze. Like we need, and whatever fossil fuels we use, we need to be using in those industries. And everything else can get fucked. Like I don't give a shit about rich people jet setting or a yacht in their yacht or shooting a rocket and all that shit. Like it's an embarrassment. It's just a fucking embarrassment. Uh-oh, do Kellogg's. What are we saying at Kellogg's? Can I say something to Kellogg's? Hey, just pay people, dude. Like, it's not hard. Like, fuck these guys. Fuck these guys. Anybody want to throw a stone? Who are we throwing a stone at? Oh, I feel like we should be doing this with more gusto. You know what? I even want to throw a stone at Jagmeet Singh. What do I want to say? Cool how you never actually say the words basic income. Instills confidence. Oh yeah, Dougie. Doug's easy. No one believes you're for the little guy. It makes you sound stupid. Grow up. Can't penetrate a planet with that thing. Sorry. I love it. At Jeff Bezos. You can't penetrate a planet with that thing, you know? Sorry about your problem down under. Sick. Sick. I love it. Let's turn his like shooting penis rockets into space into like he's just compensating for the fact that his shit doesn't work. I love it. We should turn Jeff Bezos into Lex Luthor with an erectile penis dysfunction, right? YouTube censorship is real. My last 2 comments blocked. Yeah, dude, I don't get it. I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it. I don't know what it is. Right? I can't tell you. It's just like I think maybe like if I were to be speculative, it's like you pop in and immediately start typing something, and I think YouTube might be like a little bit like whoa, like okay, like slow your roll, Yeah, but it is all algorithm. But I don't know, like, is it keyword based? I can't seem to. That's the thing is, if it's an algorithm, one would assume that there would be a pattern, and I can't see the pattern. I don't know what the pattern is, so it just seems random. John Tory still pissed off about the housing thing. You know what I do want to say to John Tory? Not letting people in to talk to you face to face during the executive meeting is cowardice. Just like when you cleared the parks. Fucking coward. Like, they don't let us in to the executive meeting. Like, they used to. But COVID, right? So it's like... Could you imagine livery stables, horse cart companies, blacksmith, and cowboys lobbying against the oil and gas to compensate their livelihoods 100 years ago? Well, they probably did. They probably tried, right? All right. I am going to leave this Twitter thing open, so if you guys think of anybody or a quote that you'd like to throw a stone at somebody, you let me know. Oh, yeah. At Bill Gates. Dude, we know you diddled little kids with Epstein. Just stop pretending about it. Like, fuck you, Gates. All these guys. Just unfucking believable. Can't say the F word. Yeah, swearing does get yeah. The algorithm is AI. There's probably keywords, and the keywords are probably like, I know that if you guys start talking about like COVID, if you start talking about any of that kind of stuff, like it'll pick you up. And there's other stuff, right? Political stuff. Sure. Rebel News. I mean, Rebel News Online. You guys prove that free market capitalism will always fail. Keep pumping those anti-vaxxers for money, dudes. Good job. All right. I think this, I'll leave that open. So we're finally getting some livestock numbers out. In terms of cattle, it's not as bad as I thought it would be, but 628,000 poultry. 12,000 hogs. Right? Like, those are significant numbers. Like, those are significant numbers. You can say just over 600,000 animals died. Like 600,000 poultry, like 600,000 birds. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Like that's evil, dude. That's evil, but funny. That's funny. Oh yeah. Well, they'll be smoking weed with Jesus now. Yeah. No, we gotta laugh about it. We gotta find some kind of humor in it, because, like, for God's sakes, it's crazy. It's crazy.
We are getting a clearer picture.
Get the fuck out of here, dude. I don't care. Yeah, here we go. This is what we're talking about.
628,000 poultry have been reported dead, 12,000 hogs, 420 cows, and also 110 beehives have been destroyed. As you can imagine, the work discovering and removing these animals has been very difficult. The government calls it heartbreaking and is urging the public to be empathetic.
I've been in constant contact with farmers through the...
You must be empathetic. I'm specifically demanding it. Like, the economic devastation from ignoring climate change is going to outweigh any gains we make from climate change. Honestly, they keep reporting on the bees, but 110 beehives is actually not that many beehives. Like, I've done beekeeping before, and you can get 110 beehives if you have the racks. That's what matters. If you have the boxes, you can get back up to like 110 beehives over a single season. Like, if you know how to do it. So it's not. I don't. That's not the new. That's not the news story. Honestly. The government asking people to be empathetic? Ironic. Yeah. I mean, well, especially as they just continue to ignore it. Like, they just completely ignore, like, yeah, we're just going to keep subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. Oh, thoughts and prayers to BC, though. You know? Like, that's really how I look at it. It's just like thoughts and prayers. Like, how about you fucking desubsidize this shit? Yeah, we're going to be net zero by 2050, you guys. Yeah, net zero by 2050. That's the plan. That's the plan. Like, no, they're not. Like, fucking no, they're not. Like, I don't believe that for a second. And I think that the people who do are gullible. Like, really, really gullible. Like, start running scams on people, right? Like, there's no reason not to. If people are this fucking stupid and gullible, right? It's time to start running scams on these rich cocksuckers, right? Like, these guys that are, like, still pro-capitalist, still pretending, like Stalin and Lenin, like, literally were robbing these guys, like, at gunpoint. Like, scam these people. They're this gullible. Like, this is how gullible they are, right? They're not smart. They're not intelligent. Scam them. Take their money. Why do you think we keep getting all these fucking scam phone calls and shit like this? Because they must work to a degree, right? Like, Ugh, and it doesn't even matter if you point out the scam anymore. It just looks like these people are just getting scammed, and they're just like, yeah, I was scammed. I just want to be part of something. Yeah, Canada's already stalling their climate plan. Canada doesn't have a climate plan. What's Canada's climate plan? Even like banning of single-use plastics, they're pushing back. Like they're not gonna make good on any of this stuff. Like all they want us to see is the plan. They don't want us to see a plan that actually gets finished, right? They just so it'll be like 2030. Right? And they'll still be like, oh, we're delaying that single-use plastic thing again. Like, that's what's going to happen. And, like, these liberals are, like, I'm dead serious. These liberals are the worst governing party we have ever had. We have ever had. They're all performative. It's all theatrics. And literally, the next leader who's going to be in charge is a literal Nazi collaborator. Like, this group is so bad, it's so bad that when the baton passes from this ineffectual, vapid, venal loser, Justin Trudeau, he's going to hand the baton over to a literal Nazi collaborator. Like, Canadian Armed Forces providing military training to Ukrainian neo-Nazis. Chrystia Freeland's grandfather, I don't have it available, but Chrystia Freeland's grandfather was outright a Nazi collaborator. He was a Nazi journalist, right? And Chrystia Freeland has always spoken glowingly of her grandfather, right? Even when confronted about his Nazi collaboration ties. Like, she's never denounced it. She's never even said anything like, look, those were the mistakes of my grandfather, and I'm seeking to do better, all that kind of stuff. Nothing like that. Right? Not even like a savvy political answer. Straight up, as far as we're concerned, she's proud of her Nazi grandfather, and she looks like she wants to move forward in her Nazi grandfather's footsteps. Right? And how is she doing that? By providing military training to Ukrainian neo-Nazis. She was the Foreign Affairs Minister when this shit happened. Right? Like, the Canadian Armed Forces has been training and collaborating with neo-Nazi groups active in the Ukrainian Armed Forces and National Guard, with the knowledge and tacit approval of successive Canadian governments. On November 8th, the Ottawa Citizen reported that military and Defense Department officials attempted to conceal a 2018 meeting between a group of Canadian officers and diplomats and members of the Azov Battalion, an openly fascist group with members embedded in the Ukrainian National Guard. Fully briefed in 2017 on its Nazi ideology, Canadian officials were concerned only that the meeting remain secret. It was exposed when Azov boasted about it via social media. The damaging revelation comes at an inopportune time for Canada's ruling elite, which is currently considering an expansion of its military deployment to Ukraine as part of a massive NATO-coordinated buildup against Russia. The Trudeau Liberal government is reportedly deliberating on sending a warship to the Black Sea, deploying CF-18 fighter jets currently stationed in Romania to Ukraine, and expanding the current 200-strong contingent of CAF personnel in Ukraine. The revelations about Canada's alliance with far-right Ukrainian national fighters underscores how the NATO powers are prepared to collaborate with the most reactionary political forces in their aggressive military buildup against Russia. The U.S.-led military strategic offensive against Russia, which has seen NATO deploy force along much of Russia's western border, is aimed at bringing Ukraine and other former Soviet republics under Western domination and opening up Russia itself to neo-colonial style exploitation by the imperialist powers. A study from the Institute for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies at George Washington University recently exposed Canadian military forces training students at Ukraine's National Army Academy, belonging to a neo-Nazi organization called Centuria. The NAA is Ukraine's version of Canada's Royal Military College, where future officers and military commanders are educated. Canadian, American, and other NATO military advisors shape the curriculum at the NAA. Centuria functions as a wing of the Azov Battalion within the NAA, seeking to cultivate an elite corps of officers wedded to neo-Nazi ideology. The Azov Battalion, which celebrates the Ukrainian nationalist fascists who collaborated with the Nazis in their war of extermination against the USSR, has been branded a terrorist organization by the U.S. State Department. This, despite Washington itself having made use of Azov and other far-right Ukrainian nationalist groups to overthrow the Ukrainian government in the February 2014 Maidan coup. In 2019, Centuria was part of a fascist demonstration which attacked the Kiev LGBTQ Pride event, calling upon right patriots, nationalists, conservatives, and Christians to defend the streets from perverts. In April 2021, Centuria's leaders boasted on Ukrainian social media that they actively cooperate with foreign colleagues, participating in military exercises with France, Great Britain, Canada, the US, Germany, and Poland. The same month, the group participated in a march glorifying the exploits of the 14th Division of the Nazi Waffen-SS, the Galicia Division, which was comprised of Ukrainian fascists. It honors this Nazi division because it beat the Bolshevik contagion. The 14th Division of the Waffen-SS was declared a criminal organization during the Nuremberg trials. Its top leadership was drawn from the ranks of seasoned Nazi mass murderers. The April 2021 neo-Nazi march caused a political uproar in Ukraine, where Nazi forces murdered millions during World War II. Despite the fact that the Ukrainian state openly deploys fascist fighters, such as those who comprise Azov, in its civil war in Donbas, Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky was forced to issue an extraordinary statement on April 30th, declaring, "The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Ukraine has already condemned any manifestations of glorification of the Waffen-SS troops and reminds that the propaganda of totalitarian regimes is prohibited in Ukraine. Our state partners have already been informed that violations of the relevant legislation in Ukraine will have logical consequences for any person who is guilty of it." Why would the Ministry of Foreign Affairs warn its state partners, a diplomatic euphemism for NATO, about glorifying the Waffen-SS? Because the Canadian government does exactly that. In the early 1950s, the Canadian government provided haven to more than 2,000 veterans of the Waffen-SS Galicia Division, and continues to defend them. The far-right Ukrainian Canadian Congress, which openly defends these Nazi veterans and glorifies the fascist World War II Ukrainian leader, Stepan Bandera, wields considerable influence in Ottawa. The Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, has been an activist within the right-wing Ukrainian diaspora her entire life. She is the granddaughter of one of the Waffen-SS Galicia Division's principal promoters, Mihailo Shomek, the editor of a pro-Nazi newspaper in occupied Poland. Shomek and the Ukrainian Central Committee, the organization for which the newspaper spoke, used it to whip up hatred of Jewish Bolsheviks and to appeal to Ukrainians to join the Waffen-SS. Both Prime Ministers Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau were accompanied by leaders of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, such as Paul Grod, on the past visits to Ukraine. Grod praised the Waffen-SS division on Remembrance Day in 2010, remarking that they fought for the independence of Ukraine. Liberal and Tory politicians have paid tribute to Ukrainian fascists at commemorations organized around public monuments that have been erected by Ukrainian veterans of the 14th Division of the Waffen-SS and of the OUNB, the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, a fascist army which fought alongside the Nazis against the Soviet Union. The Canadian Armed Forces claims that Canada bears no responsibility if neo-Nazis have received Canadian military training. In a statement, it asserted that it was up to Ukraine to vet its own security forces, adding that Canadian military personnel could refuse to train soldiers suspected of neo-Nazi ties. The reality is that no such refusals have taken place, both because they would be viewed as a threat to the CAF training mission and because the officer corps has increasingly pronounced right-wing sympathies. Even the head of the Canadian military, Lieutenant General Wayne Eyre, has admitted that we have a problem with far-right activity across the army. Concerns about Canada's military potentially providing military training to Ukrainian neo-Nazis have been raised repeatedly since 2015, when then Conservative Defense Minister Jason Kenney sent 200 CAF personnel to Kiev under Operation Unifier. This decision followed shortly after the fascist-spearheaded Maidan coup, which was politically sponsored by the US and Canadian governments and their European allies. The Operation Unifier training mission is ongoing. Kenney feebly claimed that restricting training to the Ukrainian National Guard and military would prevent Nazi sympathizers from learning Canadian military techniques. But such assurances were known to be fraudulent, as Ukraine's National Guard was already integrating various fascist groups, including the Azov Battalion, into its ranks. In fact, the Centuria revelations point not so much to the accidental training of Nazis, but rather to the conscious cultivation of far-right ideology within the Canadian Armed Forces and the armed forces of its NATO partners. Far-right forces are being mobilized across Europe as the ruling class abandons bourgeoisie democratic norms, and as the capitalist system sinks ever deeper into the crisis accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Far-right forces are also becoming more emboldened in Canada, as evidenced by their aggressive protests targeting Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and healthcare workers during the recent federal election campaign. In July 2020, right-wing activist and Canadian Army reservist Corey Huron attempted to assassinate Trudeau under the delusion he is a communist. Ugh, I wish. In truth, Trudeau is a right-wing capitalist politician who defends the interests of Canadian imperialism at home and around the world. In addition to supporting the US-led military strategic offensives against Russia and China, the Trudeau government, with Freeland very much at the center of these events, backed the far-right coup attempt fronted by Juan Guaido in Venezuela and the overthrow of the Bolivian government of Evo Morales in a far-right coup d'etat in 2019. Under previous governments, the CAF has collaborated with far-right forces in its wars and military interventions. In 2004, Washington and Ottawa used remnants of the Torontons MacToy with the thugs of the former Duvalier dictatorship to pave the way for the occupation of Haiti and the ouster of the country's elected president, Jean-Bertrand Estrade. So intimate was the collaboration between Canada's military and far-right Islamists in the 2011 NATO regime change war in Libya. CAF officers themselves joked they were Al-Qaeda's air force. Canadian imperialism relies on the service of such far-right forces abroad to enhance its strategic position and keep markets open to penetration by Canadian capital and the cost of labor low in order to maximize capitalization and profits. At least one prominent apologist for the Ukrainian far-right teaches at the Royal Canadian Military College. Lombier Lusiuk, a Ukrainian Canadian Congress donor, is a professor of political science at the Royal Military College, while being a lifelong apologist for the OUN. Lusick has called upon the Canadian government to investigate Soviet war crimes while minimizing or denying outright the crimes committed by the Nazis' Ukrainian collaborators. In 2001, Lusick wrote, "No member of the Ukrainian division Galicia can be prosecuted for a war crime or a crime against humanity, since no evidence of such crimes exist." Lusick has campaigned against the Holocaust exhibit at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. A fervent anti-communist, Lusick is deeply involved in educating the future Canadian military leadership on subjects such as history and geostrategy. If students at the Royal Military College are being taught that the Ukrainian Nazis in World War II were fighting a just cause, will they be prepared to suppress strikes or put down an insurgency of the Canadian working class? How is the Canadian Army dealing with its far-right problem if the instructors at its premier military academy laud Ukrainian fascists and Nazi collaborators implicated in the Nazi regime's most horrific crimes? Bookmarked that one. Like, vote for Nazi collaborators, get Nazi collaborators. Like, it's real straightforward shit. It's real straightforward shit. Like, vote for Nazi collaborators, get Nazi collaborators. Like, that's what's happening. Well, and they are unifying with the wrong guys, but that's like when Biden stands up and says unity, right? And like whenever I hear these guys talking about unity, what they really mean is compliance, right? Obedience. Like, you unify under the umbrella of white supremacy. That's what they're actually talking about, right? Unity means all of this diversity shit goes away. All of like the First Nations people, the black people, all of that shuts up. And we all just come together under the understanding that white people run the place. And we move forward with that, right? And we are explicit in this now. Like, it's explicit. Like, we train neo-Nazi groups. We have neo-Nazi instructors, like at least Nazi collaborators or apologists, right? Like, they are embedded deeply in the fabric of our system, and we're not doing anything about it, nor do we care to do anything about it. And our media, our corporate media runs interference for this, right? How is it running interference on this narrative, right? It's running interference with this story, right? The head of Canada's military police said he'd investigate any officer privately that it didn't include his boss. So this is the sex scandal. I shouldn't put that in quotations, but it's the sex scandals, right? That the sexual misconduct allegations within the Canadian Armed Forces, right? So we'll get article after article after article after article after article after article about the sexual misconduct allegations in the Canadian Armed Forces, right? So that everyone will talk about the sexual misconduct allegations. Everyone will be hyper-focused on like, oh, this is what the military is doing. And no one will talk about, hey, we're training Nazis. We're literally training Nazis. Do you think maybe we're on the wrong side of this thing? Do you think maybe we're on the wrong side? Are we the baddies? Are we the baddies, right? Like, the sexual misconduct allegations can just be like, oh, it's just a couple of bad apples. You can always say that. Oh, it's just a couple of bad apples, right? If your military is actively training Nazi groups, you can't say couple of bad apples, right? That is a systemic, large-scale, massive failure and a massive problem. And the fact that no one within our military apparatus seems to have a problem with it. Like, no one's refusing it. No one's standing up in protest against it. No one's saying anything about it. We're literally just giving rifles to Nazis and showing them how to use them. Like, big yikes. Big yikes. Big yikes. And like, so our corporate media runs interference for this story. right? And when Justin Trudeau decides to finally retire, he's going to hand the baton over to Nazi collaborator Chrystia Freeland. And we, the Canadian populace, will just be like, liberal, look at the little pride flag. Yeah, they wave a little pride flag. I like that they wave the pride flag. I like that about the liberals. They wave the little pride flag and yeah. While they fucking literally train Nazis who will gun down gay people overseas. Like what evidence do we need to see that these liberals are fraudulent? Like completely fraudulent, unrepentantly fraudulent. Like cannot be redeemed, should not be redeemed. If you like acting as an apologist for the liberals at this point is not much different than acting as an apologist for the liberals who collaborated with Hitler. Not much different, if you ask me. Well, there is actually a key difference, which is that Hitler didn't have the ambition to destroy the entire species, which these liberals do. They definitely have the ambition to destroy the entire species for money. They keep telling you that that's what it is. They keep saying, like, yeah, climate change, breathable air, all that kind of stuff, but money, guys. Money. This fake thing we invented that doesn't matter at all. And if all of the institutions surrounding the concept of money suddenly collapsed, no one would really, like, we would care because we'd have to do something, but our lives wouldn't be worse. Our lives wouldn't be worse at all. All right. Anybody got any requests? I know that you like some of the songs I got, Major. You got a request for me today? God, I need to redo this book. It's just getting too yeah, let's do Psychopath Nation. I like Psychopath Nation. I need to rewrite the third verse, I think. Burn yourself out for dollar bills. Kill your children for a few cheap thrills. You got a problem, well that's too bad. You're too tired to see you've been had. Workers starve while we drop bombs. No such thing as right or wrong. We'll call you lazy while you work to death. You gotta earn yourself a moment of rest. And I won't work for a psychopath nation. No, I won't work for a psychopath nation. Burn those corpses so you can speed. Buy that garbage you don't need. We'll play the victim while you lose your grip. Why won't they work in the apocalypse and retreat into your stupid lies? Yeah, you act confused while your children cry. Yeah, we promise change, but act the same. Gaslight, deflect, and take no blame. And I won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, I won't work for a psychopath nation. And as we collapse in the devil's lap, as we watch the world burn to ash, you'll whine like bitches on your way to the grave. Why won't those serfs just behave? Yeah, you fucking vampires, demons, and ghouls. We're done with being treated like fools. The curse is lifted, we're freed from your spell. Keep on crying while you burn in hell. And we won't work for a psychopath nation. Yeah, we won't work for a psychopath nation. No, we won't work for a psychopath nation. I like this one, Psychopath Nation. I give that performance a B, but I do want to rewrite the. I do want to rewrite the third verse, but You know what? These times they are uncertain, of that there is no doubt. And nobody can tell me quite what it's all about. The heartbreak and the loneliness, the chaos and the fear will make even the strongest cry, I wish my ma was here. A young man on a battlefield fights for a rich man's gold. The bullet cracks into his spine, he knows he won't grow old. And as the tears come streaming down, at once his mind goes clear. The war was fought for nothing, he cries, I wish my ma was here. A lively story well in hand, a joke to soothe your soul. And when it came to arguing, she'd forgive and let it go. And when I cried, she held me, told me it's okay, my dear. And as we face these darkened days, I wish my ma was here. And as we march into the streets, as all the righteous do, we'll raise our voices to the skies, they cannot stop the truth. And as we tear their structures down, we'll raise a victory cheer. We made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. Yeah, we made the world a better place, and I wish my ma was here. I don't know if that song's any good. I don't know if anybody likes that song, but I like to play it. So, oh, here's a good one. This is a fun one. This place is bubbling over, your money you can keep. I'd rather while away my days dying in the streets than spend another minute sucking up to you. You can take this job, put it up your ass, and this is what you'll do. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out, go away. Just go and get a job that doesn't pay the rent. Go get an education and drown in all your debt. The billionaires don't give a damn how hard they're screwing you. So let's all send a message and tell them what to do. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out, go away. We're all in this together, so long as you do all the work. Slave away your better days, making money for some jerk. This deal ain't no kind of life, it makes me wanna scream. Let's round these motherfuckers up and get the guillotines. Get fucked. Get fucked. I didn't want this goddamn job anyway. Get fucked. Get fucked. You fucked around and found out. Go away. Yeah, you fucked around and found out. Go away. Yeah, that's gonna be a fan favorite. That's gonna be a fan favorite for sure. That's got a real like achy breaky heart sort of vibe about it. You know what? I'm gonna play this one. This one's just kind of. I still don't know how I feel about this one, but I'm gonna play it anyway. Given the subject of today's video, I think that this one's appropriate. If I could fucking play it correctly, that'd be helpful. Oh yeah. Come on, John. You've only been playing the guitar for fucking 20 years. I got a secret to tell to you. Nobody knows, I don't know what to do. I got a feeling deep down in my soul. Don't tell anybody, nobody should know. But I wanna be super slutty. I wanna be, please let me be super slutty. Stand up straight with those shoulders back. Hot in that hot, get ready for the attacks. Softness is for pussies and empathy's a crime. Keep chasing the money, give God none of your time. But I wanna be super slutty. Please let me be, why can't I be? I just wanna be super slutty. Keep us tied, wear out our bones. Plunge the needle deep, don't leave us alone. Kings give up empires for one night of bliss. And why on God's green earth do we put up with this? And I wanna be, please let me be super slutty. I wanna be, please let me be super slutty. That's just a fun song, dude. I have fun playing that one. I've been playing this one more and more. I'm starting to really, really like this one. Shoot a rich man into space, you gotta get ahead of the human race. And we're the lazy ones working at the end of your nukes and your guns. And we don't even care, bring on the doom. Line up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. God let his chosen ones wander forever in the burning sun. And 10 times worse the fate for us. Forget him, worship the dust. And We don't even care, bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. Baptize us with rising tides, never let us see what hides inside, and cover our sins with dollar signs. The fire will burn away our pride, and you could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all. You could have done anything at all, and you chose this. And we don't even care, bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. We don't even care, bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. We don't even care, bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. We don't even care, bring on the doom. Light up this apocalypse, we'll be going soon. Yeah, we'll be going soon. Have a good one, Nanya. Have a good one, bud. Good to see you. Welcome to Fuck Around Fridays, guys. This is what I want to do. Sold a package of lies, spun their stories and promised the skies. Now they're robbing us in front of our eyes. They get off watching your children die. And the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're gonna kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Raise the banners, take up the cause. Suicidal nations don't have any laws. Lift up your heads and pull out your claws. Watch what happens when your apathy thaws. 'Cause the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Fascists, break all their bones. Take everything away, don't leave them alone. Bury them beneath a mountain of stone. They're evil, we won't forgive or condone. And the ghouls who claim to run this place, they don't know wrong from right. They're trying to kill the human race. I won't go down without a fight. Won't go down without a fight. Yeah. All right. That's enough music for the day. That's enough music for today. I feel like I can get away with like 20 minutes of music before I worry that people start to tune out on me. Like our good friend Nanya, who's gone to go do some reading. All right. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Hope you're having a good one. Hope it's all happening for you. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening, or not an evening, a wonderful weekend planned for yourselves. I have to go do capitalism. No days off for this poor soul. A good opportunity to say for those who are listening, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Please be sure to leave a message. Right? Please be sure to tell your friends and family. Trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. Trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. That's the big milestone, because that's when YouTube starts to monetize. Right? And once YouTube starts to monetize, I get a little penny. For every dollar they make, I get a little penny. And gotta pay those bills, right? Gotta pay those bills. But so telling your friends and family, go grab your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife's phone and get on their account and subscribe. I'm not above getting people to do all kinds of chintzy stuff. Let's go. Let's go, Brandon. So along the lines of what we were just talking about with our military training and collaborating with Nazi groups in Ukraine, Belarusian journalist Roman Protasevich trained by Canadian Armed Forces while with neo-Nazi Azov Battalion. So why this story is important, right? I'm not going to read this one aloud because it's honestly, like, the entire story is that Belarus arrested this guy, Roman Protasevich, because he's a Nazi, and he's a Nazi collaborator, right, working within the borders of Belarus. They call and we call him a journalist, right, because we're Nazi collaborators too. And we're trying to use this as the sort of Cassius Belli, the raison d'etre, in order to get sanctions put on Belarus. This, of course, is just like the public drama in order to get Europe cut off from the Belt and Road Initiative. That's what it's about. It's about cutting Belarus off so that Europe can't get goods from China so easily. And this is how the Americans are operating. This is how the West is operating on the world stage now, right? We literally just exist in order to get in the way of any kind of progress or any kind of, like, unification that can actually happen, while simultaneously saying unity, right? That's what we do. We're just like, unity, and then spokes. Yeah, we watch in horror and consternation. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Here's a protest that was going on. Edmonton Wet, Sweat, and Solidarity March.
RCMP! How can we so racist? RCMP! How can we so racist? RCMP! How can we so racist? RCMP! How can we so racist?
Oh, Major, do you want to hear Black Hole Sun? Is that what that is? You don't have to be coy about it. You can just ask. Publicly, the head of Canada's military police said he... Oh, yeah, we've already done this. Who gives a fuck about this? Okay, I gotta go use the bathroom. Do I have a video prepared? Please tell me I actually prepared a video this time. I did not. Too bad. Chair stream it is. Enjoy your chair stream. Chair stream. Chair stream. You get to look at the chair stream. Chair stream. Chair stream. Everybody loves a chair. Wow, that is a really good point, Chair. Thanks so much for entertaining people, Mr. Chair. Oh, Rob, I completely forgot that I was going to get you into the thing. Here. And got it. How do I fucking do this? So Rob, just get into the voice chat general. That should connect us. You probably can just pop in because I know that you're in with the Patreon, right? So I think you can just pop in that way. It's in the live stream Discord. Live stream.
Test. Can you hear me?
There's the man. How you doing, Rob?
Test.
Oh, I can hear you, bud. I can hear you. Oh, but maybe you can't hear me. Hold on, that might be my fault.
Good. Actually, I think I put it in the the general Discord.
Oh, what do you want me to play this? Rob, can you hear me, bud? This is good watching, eh? What great watching.
Yeah, play that.
Okay, we're playing that.
Health and well-being in the age of this apocalyptic black.
Yeah, I hear you fine. There's a delay.
Is personal development possible or even desirable while the world burns? Now, there are a couple things that bother me just a little bit about the stuff that we hear on the Canadian Commie. Some of the content is really doom and gloom type stuff, which can cause people to become black-pilled. I see it in the Discord too. Just in case you don't understand that term, black-pilled, I'll explain it in a little bit. The other thing I have a little mild objection to is all the apocalyptic, end-of-the-world type stuff, which I have my own unique perspective on. I'll let you know about that later. And I do want to talk a little bit just about personal growth and self-improvement. Is personal development possible in the conditions that we're living in the decline of Western society? Is that even something that we should want to do? Is that desirable to focus on bettering yourself in a declining world? But anyway, what is this black pill? Well, the black pill is a mixture of self-loathing, self-pity, a sense of homelessness, and it's very often combined with hatred for the opposite sex or for other races and religions. So taking this black pill means that you see that everything, just absolutely everything, is hopelessly, permanently broken. Success is impossible. Relationships, doomed. Wage slavery, a life sentence. The other race is oppressing you. Nothing can be done about this. This fatalist view that it's over, it can become like a tragic trap, a self-fulfilling prophecy where things just keep spiraling down. Everything bad that happens is taken as proof that the black pill is real. Anything that might suggest some kind of a reason for hope or for optimism, you just reject it and shoot it down, and you rationalize it away by saying, oh, I'm just trying to cope. I'm just setting myself up to fail. Now, being black-pilled is a very dangerous place to be, because even in the best case scenario, it will cause you to just lie down and rot, or start harming yourself or cutting yourself or whatever. If it gets worse, it can lead to suicide. It does frequently cause people to kill themselves. And at its very worst extreme, the black pill can manifest outwardly in acts of hatred and violence towards others. I think pretty much every single mass shooter that we've seen in North America or Europe, or even that mass killer guy here in Toronto who drove the van down Yonge Street and killed 10 people, I believe all of them were black-pilled. Every single one of them. So obviously the black pill is something we want to avoid, but that's easier said than done. And I also want to talk about the sort of end-of-the-world apocalypse prophecies that we hear, not just here on the Canadian Commie, but we hear it everywhere, like everywhere, on the subway, on the CBC, it's everywhere. Since 1945, we have been fed a steady diet of the world is about to end at any moment. It started with the nuclear apocalypse. The nuclear bomb scare had children in school learning how to hide under their desks for when the bombs came, while their parents dug bomb shelters into the basement. A few decades later, that apocalypse started to drop off and lose traction. So then they started with the environmental apocalypses. Now, if we follow the trajectory of these environmental apocalypses, it can pose a bit of a challenge to the view that the world actually is about to end at any time from humans destroying the environment. It started in the 1970s with global cooling, then it changed in the 1980s into acid rain, then the narrative changed again in the 90s into global warming and the greenhouse effect on the ozone layer, and finally it has become climate change. As well, we mustn't forget the public health apocalypses, AIDS and COVID, which are constantly posing a clear and present threat to all life on Earth. Now, despite 75 years of living on the brink of complete annihilation, by some miracle, we're all still here. Could these apocalypses be a little overblown? I'll leave that up to you. The position I want to take today is that this black pill state of mind and the end of the world mentality is in fact exaggerated, and it's harmful. It's harmful to us. So why do we feel this way so often? I have a theory about this. I think that human beings actually crave and require adversity. We desire adversity, extreme adversity, to the point of being near death. But why is this? I think it has to do with evolution, because not too long ago, as little as 13,000 years ago, which is a very short time in the context of evolutionarily speaking, in 13,000 years ago, human beings were living in just utterly primitive Stone Age conditions. Our lives were full of real adversity. I mean, we had to avoid starving to death. We had to protect ourselves and our children from predator animals that wanted to kill and eat us. Bad weather could kill us. Falling down and getting hurt could kill us. We lived in a state of constant fight or flight, of maximizing what little energy we had to get food and avoid death. This is
Just for people commenting in the chat, this is Rob McBean. He's in the chat right now. This is one of my Patreons, right? That's the reason why I'm showing this video as a favor to him, and also, I'm happily going to go through this and talk about these things. And I don't mind this position. This position doesn't bother me at all.
is actually the natural state that we have evolved to live in. Our bodies and our minds actually thrive in these kinds of conditions where death is a real and present threat. Now, over the past 13,000 years, we've developed all kinds of amazing, wonderful technology to the point where the threat of imminent death is not really a thing anymore. But our bodies and our minds haven't evolved yet to catch up with this change. We're still designed to thrive under these extremely adverse conditions. So in order to feel right, we start self-inflicting adversity onto ourselves, because that's how our body actually wants to live. That's how we're built to live. I think this explains why we have all this end of the world stuff and all this black pill mindset. I think there is a way to defeat these mindsets and achieve the personal growth and development all at the same time. What I do is I do intentional, controlled self-infliction of adversity. That doesn't just mean hurting myself on purpose. It means purposefully seeking out very, very hard, difficult tasks for myself and then absolutely crushing them, not stopping until I do it, I defeat them. Constantly focusing on my personal weaknesses, always looking at where I'm failing. Could be mentally, physically, emotionally, sexually, wherever it is, I always go to the weakness. I don't focus on my strong areas. I don't just do what I'm good at all day. By going to my weaknesses and facing them down, that's where I find the adversity that I think we all crave and we need in our lives. And the outcome will always be positive, because by facing down that adversity, I overcome my weakness, I become a better person, and I avoid all the black pill and the end of the world stuff. So that's pretty much it. But finally, I just want to say a few words to anyone out there who is in a real, genuine black pill state. That would be a situation where they're in adversity, but it's being externally imposed. They could be being abused, neglected, exploited, ignored, forgotten, abandoned, and it's someone else doing it to them. Experiences like these, I think, are designed to strengthen us. If we can look inside of ourselves internally to find the strengths to help ourselves, and while also reaching out externally to get the help that we need, we will be massively strengthened by this process. These evil, bad, black pill traumatic experiences where people are genuinely victimized, there is an upside to it. It's horrible, but the upside to it is that coming through it has the effect of creating unbelievably strong and unstoppable people who will then find their path to greatness.
Find their path to greatness, whatever that is. Thank you for sharing, Rob. I appreciate it. I do. Let's pop through this. One of the things the thing that I kept thinking about the whole time I was listening to this. You have this adversity thing, right? Which is good. And I think you're right. I think the problem is worse than you put it out there, right? That it's actually much deeper. That there's a darkness inside of humanity that supersedes even this adversity. The French have a term for it called the call to the void, right? That it's the impulse towards returning to death. That when you're standing on the side of a street and a car zips by, there's this sort of madness. There's this maddening voice inside of an individual that says, just throw yourself in front of the car. Just throw yourself in front of the car. Or like when a garbage disposal is going, there's this sort of mad spirit inside of you that's like, just put your hand in there. What could happen, right? It's this continuous call to the void, right? That we came from the void and we will return to the void. And so there's this constant push, this constant pressure that exists inside of the dark heart of every human to return back from whence they came. And I actually find your tactic for how to deal with these sort of pressures that you're talking about, the idea of seeking out something on adversity for yourself, something to focus on in order to do and then overcome and accomplish. I think that's quite healthy, right? That's quite healthy. That's quite good. No, I don't see any problem with that at all, right? Find something accomplishable, focus on the thing you can accomplish, crush it, overcome it, right? That's a great way to distract yourself. That's how I'll put it. That's a great way to distract yourself from the larger forces that exist in the universe. You had one comment here that I really want to address, which is you were saying, like, oh, we've been predicting the apocalypse and all this kind of stuff, and it hasn't happened. And to me, I look at that very much like, that's like arguing that because a building is like this, right, and it's on the process of collapsing, it's like, oh, well, they've been saying this thing's going to be collapsing for 75 years. Hasn't collapsed yet. Okay. Like, oh, the nuclear bomb thing. They've been talking about that for years. Like, the nuclear bombardment is extremely, like, we are extremely, we are still under extraordinary threat. That is still an extreme threat. Especially as our organizations like the United States, build more bombs, first of all, but then also begin publishing documents talking about how do we go to war while avoiding nuclear bombardment, right? Like they did with Thinking Through the Unthinkable, right? Which is a Rand Corporation document where they literally talked about how do we go to war with China without escalating it to a nuclear conflict, which is just madness upon madness. It's just insanity. And like, saying that like, oh, it's been 75 years and nothing has happened. It's like, oh, it's been literally not even a single person's lifetime and nothing has happened. Like that's a very fragile, fractional moment. And I do think though You have an interesting view and an interesting idea on the idea of black pilled, right? Which I've always understood as just simply depression itself, that things become hopeless, right? That there's a hopelessness, a bleakness, that even because what's being knotted up all together in all of this is that we are facing these problems. These problems are real. They are in front of us. We cannot ignore them or avoid them, right? There they are. They are looming threats, and they are legitimate. The one thing that I really, really don't like is the delegitimization or the playing down of the seriousness of these threats. These threats are extremely serious. They are impending. They are not being taken serious by our leadership. These are, in my view, truisms, right? Nuclear bombs are a massive problem. They are a kill switch on the species that still exist. They are still around. And just because we haven't gotten nuked yet doesn't mean we won't. Especially as we move forward, especially as we pass the baton on generation to generation. Just wait until some of these nuclear silos just get forgotten about. Just wait until people start to misplace these things, right? That's humans. That's how we are, right? Just wait until we're 300-400 years down and these nuclear bombs are just sort of floating around. Nobody really knows what's going on with them, right? We are living on this hair trigger, right? We are living on a hair trigger. The idea that it hasn't happened yet, so it's not going to, in my view, sidesteps the issue itself, which is we have these things. Why? Why do we even have these things? I'm more or less of the opinion that even having a nuclear bomb built is a war crime. That's the atrocity itself. Why is this thing built? Why do we have this thing? We should be and what's crazy to me is that we actually did go through a period of disarmament, right? Under Reagan, no less, right? Ronald Reagan, working with the Soviets, working with the Russians, created series of agreements where they started to denuclearize, right? And the reason why I really don't care for this idea of it hasn't happened, so we'll just sidestep, so it's all overblown, is because that then prevents us from actually getting into the room together and taking the issue seriously and disarming, which is exactly what we should be doing. That honestly, Rob, and I mean this from my heart, because I think that everything you just said was well meant. Really, I do. And nothing wrong with any of that. But I really do think that a lot of it comes down to just ignoring and distracting. That these problems haven't destroyed us yet, so they're not going to. And the method that I'm going to use in order to focus on is just to distract and ignore what's going on. And there's fundamentally nothing wrong with that. I mean, I take a look at that. It fits in very cleanly with my own chakra practice, my own kind of idea of facing adversity, if you like, because I have said often on this channel, the hardest thing that a person has to do is deal with themselves. That dealing with yourself is the most difficult thing to do on this plane of reality, which is why we're never given a moment to do that. And everything is just to sacrifice all of that at the altar of capital. And and this is just nuclear bombs, right? This is just nuclear bombardment. That if we don't acknowledge the seriousness, and the truth of how serious that issue is, then we can't actually get into the room and disarm, which is what we have to do. And we have done in the past. And in terms of the climate change issue, that's where I get a little, climate change will destroy us. It is not doomerism. It is not black pilling. It is not any of these things to say that the Earth and the universe is quite capable of destroying us. It's quite capable of destroying us. It can, it will, we have lots of examples of that happening. Lots of examples of that happening. Where the universe has just said, like, this city is gone now. Right? This country, this civilization doesn't need to be here. Right? We've got plenty of examples of this shit happening. And if we don't actually acknowledge that, right? And I understand where you're coming from, because this can throw people into despair. And that's really what it is, right? It's this constant concern. Chris Hedges talks about this a lot, because his works deal with this a lot, which is we have to acknowledge what's in front of us and what is real and what is based in reality, so that we can push back against it, not fall into despair. That the hurdles we have to overcome, right, which it seems like that's what you would like to do, to overcome adversity and hurdles. Like, these hurdles and these things are not manufactured. These are not false things that we are putting in front of ourselves. Like, the town of Lytton burnt to the ground because of climate change. What's going on in BC right now is because of climate change, and it is going to get worse. And just because it's been 75 years and the apocalypse hasn't ended, doesn't mean that we're not witnessing its beginning. That it's been very predictable. Like, it's been very predictable since 75, right? And we went through the acid rain. Although the acid rain, this is what's funny about the acid rain story, that was connected to aerosols, right? And the blowing of holes in the atmosphere. Like, we were blowing holes in the atmosphere in the 80s. And what happened? A bunch of scientists stood up and said, hey, we're blowing holes in the atmosphere. Can we stop? And a bunch of politicians went, oh shit, yeah, we're blowing holes in the atmosphere. And they passed very, legislation, easily done, right? What happened? The earth healed itself and the holes went away, right? Like, we know for a fact that we can look and see that there are problems. We can look at what the problems are. We can articulate them cleanly. We can find a solution, enact that solution, and it will be solved. We have done it. We know how to do it. We can do it. We should do it. And in this particular case, the issue of climate change, the issue is carbon. The issue is carbon being blown into the atmosphere. We are literally harvesting the dead carbon, burning it, and throwing them into the atmosphere. And we have to acknowledge that that's the problem, and we have to acknowledge that the problems are not being resolved, and we have to ask ourselves why. Right? No, and I appreciate the video, Rob. I do. I do. I understand where you're coming from. And I think, honestly, Rob, I think your central concern is quite sweet, which is that we shouldn't fall into despair. And how do we avoid falling into despair and depression? And I find your strategy to be just as to be as good as any other I've ever seen, right? Find something that you can accomplish and do it, right? And for some people, that can be very as simple as doing the dishes, right? That, but to me, that kind of rings of like a Petersonian individualism, kind of line, which I've always said of that is good up to the point that it's good to. And if we don't actually start confronting capital and confronting the problem, then and if we keep pretending as though, well, the problem hasn't happened yet, so it's not going to, well, I feel like I'm the little frog in the boiling pot. As the heat is rising, and I'm going like, hey, pot's gonna start boiling any moment now, and all the other frogs are looking around being like, it hasn't boiled yet. This place can boil. The sun can boil us. And it's not doomerism, and it's not black pilling. It's none of that. to say that that's the truth. That's just the truth. Right? And how do we avoid despair, and how do we move towards hope? Right? How do we avoid despair, and how do we move towards hope? And my solution is we have to stand in solidarity with one another, and we have to organize. Right? That if the problem was being resolved, like if our leadership was actually attempting to resolve it, we would be talking differently. But they're not. Right? They're not. So, thanks for your contribution, Rob. I do appreciate it. I do. Because it's always good to check in, and it's always good. Are we falling for a delusion? Are we just overstating the case? Are we overstating the case? I think that's a fine thing. Gonna get drunk now, yeah. There's a strategy too, Rob. But are we overstating the case? I don't think we are. I don't think we are. But good luck. Good luck, Rob. Thanks for your contribution, bud. Thanks for your commentary. Don't get too drunk though, buddy. I know, it's tough. Let's see what you guys say. Feels like we ride a razor's edge between war and peace. It can go either way. Because the mere perception. Well, the thing that kills me, Major, is like... Sorry, Rob, I'm just going to pop you out of the... I think you're laughing at something else there. Just going to mute you. That's fine. And I should just get out of here, too. How do I leave? Disconnect. There we go. There we go. And... the thing that I think is scary about the current moment is that we do talk about it in terms of like this group, and then they will consciously go to war with one another. And like, I'm more concerned about accidental events or incidental events, right? Like we're riding around in like mechs and shit. Like we're riding around in like high tech crazy shit. Like the idea that we're fully in control of all of it at any moment, like it's very, very, very believable to me that this goes the same way as like Dr. Strangelove, right? If you're not familiar with the movie Dr. Strangelove, highly advise everybody watch this. And spoilers, I suppose, but like it's a film that is about a series of miscommunications that leads to the nuclear bombardment of a Russian city by America. And it is a series of miscommunications. Like everybody involved in the process doesn't want it to be happening. And yet it is happening. It initially begins because of some like crazy right-wing like Christian fundamentalist type who kicks the whole thing off. And then the plane starts going and they lose communication and they can't get a hold of the plane to stop the plane, and like they're calling Russia saying like this is what's happening and oh my god, and it's all, we can't scramble and all this, and nobody wants it to happen, and it happens anyway. And the whole point of the movie is to show like I don't think this is the reason why I don't want nuclear bombs around at all, because I don't think we enter a phase of mass scale war like that because we decide to. I think that we get pulled into it because the forces of war are actually much stronger than we like to think. There's a reason why the Greeks created a god of war, right? There's a reason why there's a god of war, because they understood that war itself is a force. And Chris Hedges has written, in my opinion, one of the great seminal works on war, which is actually a very small book, but it's called War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning, right? And it's just this fundamental understanding that war is its own thing, and war will just sweep through and take over. And the hysteria of war will and war will use the tools that it has at its disposal, and it will do things that seem outside the realm of sanity. But that's war, and we don't have control of it. This is something that like people who have actually been in war zones and in battlefields talk about, that there is no control. There's nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's happening. It's just that the force itself has taken over. And we're all just trying to get through it. And in those moments, you don't care about anything other than the people who are around you, directly around you. You know? And Chris Hedges, as someone who has been to war zones, who has been to battlefields, and is an excellent writer, is really worth reading his work on this. I should go and read some of his older works again. Death of the Liberal Class. I Don't Believe in Atheists was a good takedown of the new atheist movement. His newest one, Christian Fascists. You had a whole thing here, Loaf. Black-pilled people strike me as optimistic. They're just upset the world isn't working for them. If they could find a wife and a good job, they'd throw all of that to the wind. Yes, that's actually a really good point, Onward. That's an interesting way of looking at it. That the black-pilled people, if suddenly things were working out for them, they would just be like, oh, okay, cool, things are working out for me. I'm no longer black-pilled. But that's not what this initiative is, and that's not what we're doing here, right? What we're doing here is we're looking at the world through a lens of truth to the best that we can, right? And reporting on things that are just not being reported on. Right? We're simply not talking about these things in our society, right? And even if things, I would hope that this is the truth. Even if things get to the point where I know that my rent is good, my bills are paid, all that kind of stuff, I'm still going to do this. I consider this to be my life's work. I consider this to be my life's work. And the constant rooting in the truth is what matters most to me. And it really has become as much of a truism as I tell the truth because it's the truth. Very, very simply, very much like that. And I feel like in this age of spin, this age of lies, of deception, of omission, people who are standing up and simply telling the truth for the sake of the truth, those are the people who are going to have a big impact. At least I'm banking on it. That's the primary redeeming message of the self-help garbage out there. Focus on your internal locus of control. Well, and also, Loaf, I do think, I want to put this out here, and I don't want to be mean at all to Rob on this point. I do think that's important to do. I do think that's important to do. But it's important to do for as far as it takes you, right? It doesn't take you, there does come a point where, if you're, a black kid living in the ghettos, right, and you're, you have no skills, you have no ostensible connections or anything like this, right? You're not a musician or a comedian or any of that, right? Focusing on your internal locus of control will only take you so far, right? And eventually you rudder up against that red line, right? If you're a Palestinian kid living in the occupied territories, right? Focusing on your internal locus of control will only take you up to the wall, you know? And what I don't like about people who say focus on your internal, all this kind of stuff, well, they do that and while sacrificing a material analysis. That there are realities, reality exists, and there are things that are actually happening in the world. And I think it's fair to be concerned that a material analysis of the world can lead to despair. I think that that's a fair thing to do. It's fair to talk about that. And how do we achieve not falling into despair? Good question. It's a good question. However, the problem with psychology as a practice in general is that there's a limit to the degree to which individual responsibility can solve the problems a person faces. Damn it, I should have just read that. I should have just read everything you said, Loaf. I basically just said that and then you... Get out of my head, bud. Therapists will tell you not to worry things about being outside your control, like government oppression, but that's precisely the dilemma that brought you to therapy in the first place. Yeah? Often trauma makes people become desensitized to their pain, falsely believing they are stronger for it. The pain is numbed, yet the bone is still broken. Yeah. Without sociological analysis to understand the material conditions, psychology can only do so much. From a legal standpoint, you couldn't an excellent case that the mere construction of a nuclear bomb is a war crime. Yeah. Assault as a civil suit does not require any actual harm or physical contact. The mere perception of a threat is sufficient. Like, because mere perception is enough to do harm to a person's sense of safety. Yeah, I mean, like, for fuck's sake, like, no nuclear bombs, please. like what you're describing there, Loaf, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? Like, what? We're just putting nukes, like, right beside your country. What? You know? Like, this is why I think, like, we got to stop. We got to disarm. Like, we've got to disarm. We have to, right? And it's crazy because, like, both China and Russia keep talking about it. Almost every single time I see them in public now, they bring it up, right? Almost every single time. Like, Xi Jinping goes and talks to somebody, Vladimir Putin goes and talks to somebody, and at some point, they're going to bring up, like, hey, what happened to the disarmament? Like, we were disarming under Reagan. Like, what happened? Right? And it's these fucking Christian fundies, man. For real. It's these Christian fundies. I've got to question ONDP's vetting if they approve candidates who refer to us as the blacks at public meetings. Yeah. Yeah, the blacks is, I think it's the, you know? Like, white people struggle with this shit. Especially, like, your older, rural, like, white people. And, like, I have, like, family and friends in Manitoba who, like, they just want to know what the language is. Like, that's it. But and their complaint or their commentary is it seems like it's always changing. That's what the problem is from their kind of perspective. Is that, like, they just want to know, you tell me what to say, and I will say it. I'm not going to fight you. Like, I'm on you. I just want to know. Because, like, we used to be able to say, like, here's a great example. We used to be able to say Indian, and that was fine. And then it changed to Native. And then it changed to Indigenous, and then it changed to First Nations, right? And every single time it changes, there's a group of people who look at the people who are still in the kind of old language, and they have this, like, sneering, oh, what are you, a racist kind of thing? And it gets exhausting. It gets exhausting, right? And, like, you really do have, like, you do have people in, like, rural places who want to be part of it. They want to be part of, like, the wider culture, and they want to be part of this kind of stuff. But because they live where they live and because of the way things are, they're a little bit behind, right? And so you'll end up in a situation where a guy will say, like, you know, we gotta do more to help the natives and all this kind of stuff. And people are like, oh, that's not, you can't say native. That's not, and they're like, oh, okay. And they're constantly put in this, like, back foot position. And so I do have a bit of sympathy. Like, I do have a bit of sympathy for people who say something like the blacks or something like this, because it's not like the language is concrete and it's not like we all agree, right? Like it's and more than that, the language is constantly changing. And so I think there is some credence and some credibility that comes out of the right. And I don't mean like the far right actual racists. I mean people who are like center right, like who you know, I own my piece of property, I own the land, I like it that way, that's fine. And they're just trying to keep up with the society. But they're not really connected that much to the society. So like, again, I think this is one of these things where it's like, it would be really great if the left could just like plant some flags and leave them be, you know? Like, I rather like First Nations. I hope that we stick with First Nations. I hope that we don't move from First Nations. Like, I think that that's great. But again, like I'm a white dude. Like if the First Nations people stand up and say no, we want this, then I'm going to do that. And but at the same time, like, I think we should respect that there is a degree of frustration. And if we don't address that, and if we don't acknowledge that that frustration is real, it exists, and it's valid. It's valid. It doesn't make someone a racist. It's valid. Right? If we don't acknowledge that, then what that's going to do is they're going to push them further to the right. And they're not going to join with us. They're not going to say like, oh, here's a group of reasonable people who I can actually negotiate with and understand their position and all this and compromise and have empathy and all this. Nope, they're going to go to the pub and they're going to cry into their cups with their fucking Nazi friends. And their Nazi friends are going to be like, yeah, dude, I get it, man. They keep changing the language. Like, it's unfair, right? Us white people got to stick together, right? That's the truth. That's the truth. Also, the narrative of global cooling to acid rain to ozone to global warming to climate change is fundamental misunderstanding of the science. Yeah, I think that is actually true. And like, the changing of the language from global warming to climate change was done under the Bush administration purposefully to kind of downplay, because global warming was scarier than climate change. Climate change was easier. You could talk about climate change and it wouldn't scare people, whereas if you talked about global warming, it did scare people. So they changed the language on purpose. I've made peace with myself a long time ago. I'm not perfect and accept my mistakes. Why can't the billionaires? That's a great question, Matthias. And I think it really is. Like, to understand that, you need to look no further than the figure of Batman. Batman is the embodiment of the psychosis of the billionaire class. That Batman, as a young boy, witnessed the murder of his parents in public, no less, right? And bore this scar, this trauma, right? And turned it into a personal fight for vengeance against crime itself, right? And in this obsession, this psychotic obsession, he went overseas and trained with ninjas, forged himself into a perfect fighting force, right? Created a military force of bat-shaped objects, including a suit where he dresses up like a fucking bat to go into the streets of Gotham and beat up people with mental illnesses. Like, every single one of these billionaires has a kind of psychosis that's on that level. And that's what I try to analyze, right? Elon Musk obviously has a massive daddy issues. His father was a slaver. His dad owned slaves, right? Think like Leonardo DiCaprio in Django, right? Do you think Leonardo's character in Django would have like hugged his kids a lot and said, I love you a lot and I'm proud of you a lot? Do you think a slaver who owned slaves in emerald mines would really hold in high regard these emotional needs for raising children, right? Do you think they would do that? Like watch a movie like There Will Be Blood, right? Like, do you think that character, what did that character do to his own son? Right? Was there a lot of love, a lot of hugging, right? And so Elon, in my view, is just like why does he do what he does? Like, he has no reason to act the way he does, right? Like, to buy up other people's inventions, like, that makes sense. But then to also buy the title of founder, to also buy the title of, like, creator, and then also to then fund a PR campaign to convince everyone else that he's the creator and that he's a super genius, right? When he isn't. So he's like cosplaying as a genius. Why? Why would anyone do this? Right? And I think it's just because he's got pretty significant daddy issues. Right? Like, this'll prove, this'll be it. When I do this, then I can rest assured that my daddy loved me. That I'll get to Mars, and when I land on Mars, I'll be at Mars and I'll say, Daddy would have loved me for this. Daddy would be proud of me. He couldn't help but be proud of me. And he doesn't realize or accept that, look, your dad's not really capable of that. Like, your dad had his own shit going on. And he didn't really have the love to give to you, bud. Like, that's the harsh truth of Elon Musk. And you can do this with, like, all of them. They all are like this, right? They're all just holding on to, like, childlike traumas that are propelling them forward in this mad desire to prove something to someone. Like, prove their ambition, prove their value, fill the void. And so when you say, like, I've made peace with myself a long time ago, I'm not perfect, accept my mistakes, why can't the billionaires? Because they bear a mass trauma that now is justified. Because the justification of the trauma is the accumulation of wealth itself. And so the process of accepting their mistakes and accepting who they are and accepting their humanity comes with being rid of this wealth. It's a snake that eats itself. It's a constant circle of self-reinforcement. And they can't get through it. They can't get through it. And because the society itself rewards them for this. Anyway, I could talk a lot longer on this. Like, I didn't even talk about Jeff Bezos or guys like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, right? Or David Thompson. David Thompson's really interesting this way because he not only has, like, the daddy issues, but he's got like monarch shit. Like, he's got, like, legacy and lineage and history going back hundreds of years. Like, he's got, like, a fucking big, and like the understanding that, and I will turn as my father turned to me, and I will bestow upon him the monarchical title. I bet these guys are doing, like, fucking monarch, like, rituals and shit with one another. I bet that David Thompson's dad knighted him, put the crown on his head. Like, I bet all that shit happened. For sure. For sure. Like, he's the third Baron of Fleet. Like, that's his official title. He's a fucking monarch. He's still a monarch. Nobody in the society has said, no, you can't be a monarch. We keep pointing at the Queen of England as if she matters. Being like, the Queen of England, we should be rid of the Queen of England. Literally, the richest guy in Canada is a fucking Baron. His title is the third Baron of Fleet. No, and we don't even look at him. We're not even like, no, the Queen of England. She's on our money. Global warming has always been a subset of issues of climate change. The first paper that used the word global warming also used the term climate change. Yeah. Hey, I just did the dishes. Good for you, bud. I got to do my dishes, dude. I wish somebody had have articulated to me with more clarity that adulthood is essentially just doing your dishes until you die. But this is absolutely the truth, right? Like, find something you can do and do it. For sure. You gotta do that. I think that's like a truism. Either that or you're just in bed all day, right? Which I don't know. That seems fun. To solve this issue, it will require people uniting, not absorbing into individuality. Yes, if a million Canadians surrounded Justin Trudeau, we could get whatever we wanted. Very simple. Exactly, Matthias. Exactly. People are so atomized by capitalism, it makes sense to focus on yourself. Yeah? Well, and the whole society encourages it. The whole society encourages it. John, after a few minutes of looking into the Belt and Road, it only strengthens my belief that the virus is planted to bring down China. It's basically harmless to most people, and they can inflate and pay debt. China's going to get pinned with the cost of the virus. In the end, debt will be gone. Okay. Like, widely speculative. I'll put it that way. Like, that's widely speculative. I like to operate from a place of source documentation, right? Like, nice narrative, but like, I'm going to need some source documents on that one. Sometimes things just happen, Nanya. Yeah. COVID is a rare wild card. We can't bomb, propagandize away, sue, overrule. Yeah, we just got to deal with it. And we're just not. Toot toot. The Iraq War and Afghanistan petrodollar threat. Yep, I think that's right, Matthias. There's plenty of other historical evidence that supports your theory. You guys are getting too conspiratorial. Yeah, a little bit. Like, this is widely conspiratorial, right? Like, and while my position on conspiracies are very simply this. They're fun. They're interesting. I get why people like them. But I don't like to delve too deeply into them because they can consume a lot of time. And they get dangerous when conspiracies start to become the true narrative, right? Like when you have, like, and I'm not trying to say don't, like, I'm not trying to say don't do this, right? But while you're doing it, like, source documentation is key. Source documentation is key. And also you've got to start really wondering, like, so what? So what? Like, this is a Bush 9/11 moment. Like, so what if you proved that Bush did 9/11? So what? What would change? What matters? Right? These guys are guilty of war crimes you can see. Right? We've proven them. They're right in front of your face. They literally invaded Iraq on false pretenses, plunging the area. They're mass murderers. They're psychopaths. Right? Nothing's happened to them. If anything, like, George Bush is now on Ellen, and she's all like, oh, we've got to reconcile our differences with these fucking mass murdering psychopaths. Right? No. So, like, I get a little, like, well, you have to speculate they aren't going to tell the truth. Yeah, that's fair. They don't announce when they build Little Boy. Like, but that's just the thing, right? This is the thing, is that they do announce it. Like, that's where we diverge here. Like, I understand that there is, like, the idea of, like, a secret base or, like, keeping things, but the trouble is that you can't keep things secret. Like, this is sort of one of the linchpin failings of many conspiracies and many conspiracy theories, is this idea that, like, large groups of people can actually maintain secrets. You really can't. Like, you really can't. Like Benjamin Franklin had this great phrase, like, 3 people can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. And even then, most of the time, secrets are divulged on deathbeds, right? It's very hard to keep a secret. If something like Little Boy was going around, for those of you who don't know, we're talking about the anime Akira, 1980s anime Akira, which was really groundbreaking at the time. And still really stands up. But, like, Little Boy is an underground biological experiment that is essentially a monster that gets unleashed in the public, and, you know, the classic, like, Japanese trope of some sort of overwhelming, imposing force coming and destroying us. Godzilla. You can't keep a project like Little Boy a secret. You just can't. It's just not. It makes for good cinema. And it makes for interesting conspiracy, but, like, there are whistleblowers, there are journalists, there are people who are looking in and are curious, right? All of that kind of stuff, like and like that. It is just the truth. It's just the truth. Wow, the trolls were ballistic on Cortez's stream last night. They went to all sorts of streams. They flooded them with death threats. Cortex's name was attached to it. That's creepy. They were all extremely racist. Honestly, it's getting old, yeah. Yeah, it's just someone who hates Cortex. And I suggest to him and to everybody, go into the settings. There are settings. This helped me out a great deal. It helped me out a great deal. And I'm just going to quickly zoom down, make sure I don't have any of that going on. Yeah, great. I really, really highly suggest you can get into the settings and change it so that a person has to subscribe and then there's like a wait time. So they can't just subscribe and start spamming. They like subscribe and then they got to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You can even put it up to like an hour or even a day, I think. So you could really make it. So like they've got to subscribe and then like wait fucking a whole 24 hours if you want to go that extreme. I literally have put it up to like 5 minutes. And then you can also put a slow on the comments. And you can do it like 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds. And I've only got it on, I think, 5 seconds or 10 seconds. And that's been enough to slow it down. So it's completely disincentivized them. So that when the trolls come in, they like put up one comment, maybe they get two. And I just remove them. I don't comment on it. I don't make a fuss about them. I don't spit at them or anything like that. I don't give them what they want. I just remove them, and they seem to leave me alone now because they know it's a waste of their own time. It takes 5 minutes to get in. They get one comment and then they're gone, with no commentary or anything. They don't get the jerk off. They don't get the jerk off of being like, hey, look how they don't get any of that. It literally is just like fuming. That's literally it. So they've moved on because they don't get what they want. So I highly suggest that Cortex, if that's what he's experiencing, I highly suggest that he does that as well because it's gonna help. It's gonna help. Don't feed the trolls, man. This is like Internet 101. This is like way back when the internet first came out. When I first got access to the internet, right? Don't feed the trolls. Starve them out. They want your anger. They want it. The Art of War specifically tells you in the first passages to avoid war whenever possible. Yet no exceptions. War is but a means to an end, and nations on all sides only suffer from prolonged war. And also, like, you only ever go to war if victory is certain, right? Like, you should not go to war. Like, this is the thing, man. Like, fucking The Art of War, the Chinese wrote that shit. Like, that comes out of China. And we think we're gonna win? We think we're gonna win? I don't think so, bud. Like, I don't think so. Like, it's not looking good for us. It's not looking good for us, dude. Like, I don't think we should try. Really. I don't think we should try. Like, I agree that any argument saying COVID originated as a manufactured crisis is too conspiratorial. Again, it is one of those things, like, I don't mind if people want to spend time doing that, but I really am going to need to see some source documentation. Like, I'm going to need something from the Pentagon, from the FBI, from the CIA, from the World Health Organization, right? I'm going to need to see something. And these documents always exist. Like, the idea that these guys are not keeping track of what has been said, yeah, they're going to do that, right? So, like, and I just worry that we waste our time with it. That it's fun, but, like, and then the danger is, like, if the conspiracy becomes the accepted truth in a group, that's where things get really wacky and wonky. Because if everybody just accepts the conspiracy as true, then anybody standing up and saying, like, okay, but you don't have any evidence for this, right, gets shit on. And it's like, well, why is the person who's standing up and stating the truth getting shit on? And the truth is that we don't have any evidence. There is no source documentation. It is all speculative, right? And I'm not willing to base my belief system on speculation. I'm just not. Like, documents, please. Documents, please. And oftentimes, big conspiracies can be like, I've got the document. And then you read the document and you're like, this isn't anything. Like, this isn't anything. Like, that happens a lot. Like, that happened with the Uyghur genocide thing, right? They came out with, like, documents being like, we've got the documents showing the plan of the genocide. And it literally, like, you read the document and you were like, no, this is internal prison documents talking about how to deal with prisoners. Just like every other prison you've ever seen in your life. Like, oh, they could abuse it, but like when genocides are planned, they are planned. Like, people stand up and explicitly say, we're going to commit a genocide. Let's commit this genocide. Let's go. Genocide, go. They don't, like, you know, do sideways little winks and nudges and like, we'll pass this piece of legislation and then we'll abuse it later. That's not how it happens, right? Like, these things are mass scale organizations. Like, they are massive organizational things. USA will get rid of their nukes first, hopefully. Knowing USA, they'll keep a few nukes secretly if it was a nuke ban. No, USA will never get rid of their nukes first. Even under, even when they were denuclearizing, right? It was kind of a 1-for-1. Like, we'll get rid of 100, you'll get rid of 100, right? We all kind of did it all at once, right? Which is I think is fair. Like, that's not unfair, but like, I really I worry about this. I worry that the idea of de-escalation and denuclearization and like the people who are trying to get into power, or there's like nobody in power that's actually talking this way, right? That everything is about escalation, and nobody is saying like, hey, let's pull it back. Indigenous is different from First Nations, which is a corporate structure. See, this is about yeah. I know what you're saying there, Harry. U.S. will implode before they disarm. Yeah, probably, dude. Write down Switlow Sheds the Light on YouTube, Canadian Context. We're getting close to the end here, bud. Come in some another day, and we'll do that. It's all pretty hopeless, isn't it? I wonder what the point of continuing is. I have a couple of answers to that question, Alex. Right? Number one, I think curiosity counts for an awful lot, don't you? I think curiosity counts for an awful lot. I'm very curious to see where this thing goes, right? Like, what's going to happen next? George Carlin said, because people asked him, like, he was delving into sort of the absurdity of all of this. People asked him, like, how did he go? And he was just like, oh, I've just, like, disconnected from the stakes of the outcome, right? That, like, I don't care. I'm just watching the show, right? And I think that there is something to that. That once you understand that you are a light being, right? You're just a visitor here. And that's just a guarantee, right? Like, your fate is not actually intrinsically tied to the fate of humanity. That the group of humans that come after us, well, there they are, but you're not there, right? Like, and so in many ways you are we are just a visitor. And the goal for us shouldn't be to really make our own lives any better, right? Which, I mean, it's understandable that you want to make your own life better. That's fine. But it should be to make the next generation's lives better. That's the focus, right? That, and we should be pushing in that direction as a favor to people who don't even exist. Really. Like, I think that that's the initiative, and that's the reason we do what we do, is to make sure that when we pass the baton from our generation to the next generation, that they have a better go of it. Or at least they're informed about what's going on, right? At least they're informed about what's going on. And it's that process, I think, that we are all engaged in. That sure, things seem hopeless. Things have this kind of like bum, 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 bum. But that's beside the point, if you ask me, right? That it is about like the multi-generational, the ongoing process of passing the baton and knowing that at the end of your life, right? Well, here you go. I did the best I could, right? And I don't see hopelessness in that. I don't see hopelessness in that pursuit. If anything, I see the opposite, which is like we have larger tools now than we have had in the past. That it is a bloody miracle that any of this information has survived, right? That the powerful, like they're not that powerful. They're not so powerful that they can scrub the world of information. Their power is in the immediate, right? Their power is in this immediate sense of just like we have big blaring megaphones, right? So we can sort of control the narrative in the immediate. But you can see it with things like the WMD scandal, that as we get away from the megaphones and we see the evidence as it goes through the time stream, right? We can hold on to this stuff and pass it on, right? And just keep passing it on and just keep passing it on. So that by the time like I'm only 38 right now. I'm not yet halfway through, right? And it's taken me my entire life to get here. So I've got another entire rest, the same amount of time, presumably, if I live the average, I've got the same amount of time that it's taken me to get set up to this point to do as much damage as I can. I actually think that there's something quite hopeful about that. There's something quite nice about the knowledge that I've got, my entire, like another life, the entire life I've lived, another one, to do as much fucking damage as I can and to pass on the baton as strongly as I can. Yeah, that seems okay. And then at the end of it, there is just sort of this like, breathe in, breathe out, you did your best. Like, no one's going to judge anybody, right? We go back to sleep. That's all. Right? We're just visitors. I rather like that idea, We're just visitors. I do kind of see myself as like a ghost. Do you know what I mean? Like I see myself as like a specter just haunting this place. But like I don't have ties. Like I don't think I don't think anybody has ties really. That we just believe we have ties. And it's like, but we don't. Not really. So just take it for what it is. And that your hope for what might happen doesn't really supersede what's actually happening right now in front of you. It's exciting times. And things can turn on a pin. Things can just go, and suddenly we're going in a whole new direction. Like 5 years from now, we could be denuclearizing. We could be moving forward with climate change shit. Like it can happen that quickly. It can. Just, I'm curious to see how it goes. I think Tesla is a bankster scam. Oh yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I've been lying in bed a lot today being miserable. Alex, I feel you, dude. I do feel you. That's kind of how I was when I woke up today. I was just like, I don't really want to fucking do the thing today. But here we are. We made it. Oh yeah, crypto and NFTs are for laundering money in a cashless society. Can't use the casinos anymore. There's no cash. They invented. Yeah, dude. You're right. Like crypto and NFTs are a fucking scam from start to finish. These things need to be like we need to demolish these. Like they are a fucking climate change catastrophe. Like from day one. Like we need to get rid of them, and they exist really and exclusively to they exist exclusively to let billionaires trade sex slaves with one another. That's near as I can tell. With 70 to 80 years to mess around here, should we not give a shit about our role here? Yeah, we should do our best and forget the rest. We have to be conspiratorial. They won't tell us any truth. But Nunya, that's the thing. Like they do. That's just it. They do. They do tell you the truth. Right? It's all in their source documentation. It's all in their stuff. They say it all in public. They just don't put it through the media apparatus, right? Like the United States State Department releases all kinds of shit all the time, right? Things that would blow your brain out, right? And like they are telling you the truth. We just don't read it. Like we just don't know about it because it's not being reported in the Washington Post. What's the point anymore? It's all meaningless. Well, if it's all meaningless, then the only thing that has meaning is what we do. And that's just a fundamental truism. If it's all meaningless, then what we do is the only thing that matters. And why does there need to be a point? That's a good question, Matthias. Little boy was the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Oh, yeah. God. I can't believe they did that, eh? Like, what a bunch of psychos. Like, that's a real psycho thing to do. Like, the Japanese were surrendering. Like, they were in negotiations to surrender. We have subscriber-only mode, 5 minutes, and slow mode. And still, interesting. Maybe think about increasing things. Like if that keeps happening, just think about increasing things. Just that's been my strategy. Just think about like ticking it upwards. Eventually, it just becomes too much for them. The death threat thing, though, like the direct threat thing, like that seems very intense. Very intense. Just look how China helped out in the Korean War. They fought very hard. It's crazy Google never put the Belt and Road Initiative in my feed, considering my English. Well, no. Nobody gets to know about the Belt and Road Initiative, dude. They don't talk about the Belt and Road Initiative. Like, the Belt and Road Initiative is like, there are subjects that are blacklisted, that do not get talked about in American media. Belt and Road Initiative is one of them. Do not talk about that. Do not let people know about this thing. Right? It's the most important thing happening in the world right now. No question. It is what is giving China their power. Because it's too revealing. It reveals too much about the failures of American imperialism. Nice seeing you, Alex. Good luck, bud. Good luck. I meant check out the channel in your own time. Gianna Switlow is the go-to for modern Indigenous legal context in Canada. Hope you... Oh, I think I know this name. I think I've read some articles on here by her. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. If it's the same person, I agree. Yeah, really good context. I never even found out the Wet'suwet'en thing until a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. The Canadian specter of communism. Exactly. John, where's a good place to get source documents? So, real good question. Real good question. You can the World Socialist. I just had an article by them. Why am I blanking on their name? The World Socialists. The World Socialist website. Whenever they do any reporting, they always give you source documentation. The Jacobin will give you good source documentation. You can also, like, if you have the chutzpah, let's say, the chutzpah, you can really sift around on the United States government on their own website, right? Like they released this shit, like something like this, like thinking, yeah, a document like this comes out of the Rand Corporation directly, right? Like you can go to the Rand Corporation website, you can find War with China, Thinking Through the Unthinkable. It's there, right? The problem isn't that these documents are not being released. The problem is that they're not being disseminated whatsoever through the media apparatus, right? That the Washington Post, Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC, all these guys, they just don't talk about this shit, right? That the greatest lies that are going on these days are not actually overt lies, like the Uyghur genocide lie. They are the lies of omission. Just don't talk about it, right? Like what they're trying to do with CRT in the school systems down in the South, right? Just don't talk about America's own history. Just don't talk about it, right? And it's work. It's work. That's why I've got a YouTube channel, right? Because it's work. It takes effort. It takes time. It takes research. You're constantly checking in. You're constantly doing stuff. And honestly, like Noam Chomsky is completely correct. Like news places like the New York Times, like newspapers like that are like the Globe and Mail here in Canada, or like the Guardian. Like in terms of raw resource, in terms of raw information, they're good. You just need to understand their bias. You just need to understand the bias that they have and the way that they talk. And I highly advise read the business section. Nobody reads the business section, and some of the shit that gets said in the business section is like overt mask off fascism, like pretty blanket, pretty outright. I'm hoping to get to a point where like I want the libraries to get back open again, because I miss the real newspapers. Right, doing it all digitally is annoying. Like the real newspapers is where it's at. You get real good information from reading like the actual newspapers. Metaverse puts an end to the concept of land. They ain't making more of that. Yeah. No, I mean they're setting themselves up for a pretty big collapse, right? Because like eventually people are just going to be like, wait a minute, like this is nothing. Like this isn't anything. Yes, reality has a well-known liberal bias. Yeah. Like, it turns out that reality, when it asserts itself, it seems to countervail the right. Weird how that works. Have a good weekend onward. You too, bud. You too. And recently there's been a real pinging on the Republicans, specifically, about Jeffrey Epstein. But, like, Jeffrey Epstein's access to the Clinton White House laid bare. Visitor logs reveal pedophile visited the former president at least 17 times, including a dozen in 1994 and twice in one day on 3 separate occasions. And, like, we know that Clinton was on the flights. We know all this kind of shit. So, like, the problem is the system itself. Like, both parties are complicit. They're all part of it. Oh, yeah. Nano sees cocktail of pessimism driving down Canadians' perception of future living standards. No shit. You mean ensuring that nobody can actually... that 63% is the highest we've seen since we started tracking it about 10 years ago? Oh, no shit. There's still people that are worried about the pandemic. Yeah, but like no one can afford housing. Rent is absurd. Something's got to give. Like something's got to give. It can't keep going this way, right? Like everyone's being fucked. Everyone's being fucked and abandoned. Like and the political class doesn't give a fuck at all. Like it doesn't care. It simply doesn't care. It doesn't work for the interests of the public at all. It works for the interests of the house scalpers, right? Of the hoarders. That's what they're in the pocket of those guys. Oh yeah, here's the picture, right? Chrystia Freeland, Minister of Foreign Affairs, her grandfather, Michael Chomag, chief editor, right? His boss, Vladimir Yukovich, the chair of the Ukrainian Public House, and then his boss, Hans Michael Frank, Governor General, occupied Poland, and then his boss, Adolf Hitler. Hope they reveal Trump on the island. Well, somebody just testified in the Maxine Ghislaine trial that someone literally just testified saying that Donald Trump, that she was brought to see Donald Trump by Jeffrey Epstein when she was 14. Like, that's straight out. Like, that's come out in the testimony of the trial. Like, I'd be very surprised if something happens to Trump over it, but that is a testimony that happened. Finally, a fusion reaction has generated more energy than absorbed by the fuel. You're a very capable communicator, John. Enjoying your platform and discourse. Keep hope. Remember, love is a verb. Stay safe, everyone. Ah, that's a lovely sentiment, Harry. You too, bud. You too. What a wonderful thing. What a wonderful thing to have said. That's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. Oh, on the way out, let's share this one. People are making all kinds of fun stuff.
Get our country open, and we have to get it open soon.
That's me in Corona. That's me in the spotlight, abusing my position, trying to blame Chinese flu, and I don't care if you have caught it. Oh no, I said too much. Fucked it up. I thought that I heard you coughing. I thought that I heard you wheeze. I think I let the old folks die.
Get our
we'll see. We'll see. Like, if nothing breaks, like, it's very possible that Donald Trump becomes the president again. It's very possible. Like, he is still the front runner in the Republican Party. There doesn't appear to be a real credible threat that exists. I've even seen, DeSantis proposes a new civilian military force in Florida that he would control. Balkanization, the United States breaks apart. Create your own state military. Balkanization, it takes over. Balkanization nation. That'll be wild, man. That will be wild. Like, of all the things that is going on in the world today that I focus on, the potential balkanization of the United States is the one that I really look at with a keen and interesting eye, right? I'm very, very interested in the idea of the United States actually balkanizing in significant ways, which is completely possible. Like, people who are walking around saying, like, oh, it's not possible. Oh, what are you, like, okay. Like, okay, if you say so, buddy. Like, literally the only thing that's keeping the United States together at this point is just, like, a kind of vision of unity, right? Not unity itself, a vision of unity. That most people in the United States still hold this belief that it's better that we're together. But that can turn, and it can turn very quickly, right? Especially as material conditions worsen for our citizens. And, like, people are starting to put together, like, wait, most of my taxes is going to fund this, like, completely illegitimate military pursuit? Like, I'm just not going to I don't want to participate in that anymore. How do I not participate? And eventually there's like large groups of people who are being like, let's go, Brandon, let's go. Like, let's fucking get out of this. Like, fuck this whole thing. And like, you know, that's the thing that I'm most interested in, because that's one of those things that I think is going to really blindside huge segments of the population. Like, literally, let's say Texas decides to start the process of secession. People are just going to be like, you're just going to have tons of people who are just going to, I don't even know what to think about that. And I agree with you, Eziel. Those Reddit balkanized China maps are just extra funny now. Yeah, like, those are not serious, man. Like, the people who are creating balkanized China maps are just like living in a fairy tale land. Like, China is very unified. It's very, very unified. Like, and there's no reason for them to balkanize. Life has only improved for them, right? Under the Communist Party, and the Chinese people themselves are in favor of what's going on in China. Like, where's any evidence whatsoever of China balkanizing? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's like fan fiction. Like, it's just total living in La La Land. You were living in the Northwest Territories and they ripped you in half and called them Nunavut. Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting moment. It was an interesting moment. All right, guys, we have done it. We've reached the 9 p.m. mark yet again. I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful weekend. I've got to go do the capitalism, so that's deeply unfortunate. But I hope that you guys actually are spared such a fate. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you is a quantum being, standing in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to make sure you never realize it, because they don't need you realizing that you are their equals. Good luck. We're going to need it.